Okay, everyone. I'm here to discuss with you today the importance of sex hormones in relationships, but not just that, how cortisol negatively impacts that, and how cortisol is very good for us, but it can be, when used on demand, not so good. All right. So, cortisol is a stress hormone we're supposed to use to wake us up in the morning. So it's very good for us. Light shines through our eyes, we wake up. Okay. Uh, it's also great for settling inflammation or getting it going. And so inflammation is often looked upon as a bad thing. Inflammation is a good thing, like cortisol. Okay. Think of it as a kind of a yang energy, right? So yang energy might be masculine energy, might be like, think of hormetic stress. You ever heard of that? It's when maybe you go out and you experience a sharp cold. It's very uncomfortable, but then it can, in some ways, support the nervous system. Um, and or maybe you get really hot, but you also sweat. Okay, stressful events that lead to good things, right? So cortisol and inflammation are like that. They're a necessary evil in a sense. We have to have them. I'm comfortable, but it's necessary. So when it goes up in the morning, you're supposed to have that, but it's supposed to stabilize. But then people wake up and they just drink caffeine. When you drink caffeine, cortisol goes up again. And when it goes up again unnaturally like that, what can happen is a negative cascade of events with our sex hormones. All right. So our major sex hormones are estrogen and androgens. Well, it's estrogens plural. So um, we have several estrogens that are at play that current endocrinology follows. E2 would be probably the most important or the most to focus on for someone who is just living their day-to-day lives as a woman or even as a man. So it's called estradiol. Um, estradiol E2. And so estradiol is very much necessary for a woman to feel voluptuous, serene, soft, really get into her feminine, grow breasts, a butt, pretty face, things like that. Estradiol is a very, very, very powerful hormone. Okay. And so an equivalent to that for the men might be testosterone. Okay. Testosterone is our leading male hormone that on the male end develops male characteristics and physical traits, etc. Um, and both of these, when cortisol goes up, it leads to them both going down. Okay. So when cortisol floods the system, it's almost like there's not enough space. So it just pushes out the sex hormones as if they're not a priority. All right. They go down. And when these hormones go down, we inadvertently or end up subtracting kind of that flavor that comes with being a man or a woman. And when this happens, it's not a good time for relationships specifically. Yes, you might be able to get the job done a lot faster with the caffeine because you would otherwise have brain fog. However, it comes as a negative consequence to everything else because testosterone is necessary, or specifically androgens, are necessary to help men and women buffer anxiety. Okay. So anxiety can be something that comes in when we have that flutteriness that comes with caffeine. Okay. Because we're almost like burning on fumes and we don't have a lot of a constitution. And caffeine has a tendency to really like bring on like this awakeness that brings a little more paranoia than usual. And so our neurotransmitters are like going all over the place when this happens. And so Androgens work to buffer all of that, and they can kind of reduce the fear response, which I believe anxiety is very much connected to. And so we need to have these in function, both men and women. I have my theories around my archetypes, the developmental archetypes, and how the baby girl, as an example, she struggles with enough androgen synthesis simply because of the fact that she lacks the masculine integration. I actually think integration affects the sex hormones. And that would be a really revolutionary science to come about. But as it stands right now, it's just my own theory. But it's very likely, especially with my own experience as a manifestor. So I'm like the baby girl in that I lack the masculine integration. I believe that my body divided a lot more estrogen and copper. Copper is the phenol mineral into my body to essentially be receptive enough to find the father figure and open up to women, et cetera, et cetera. So um, through all of this, we want to manage cortisol. Cortisol is the just the centerpiece to everything when it comes to relationships. If if that thing is going out all the time, either due to our poor diet because of inflammation, or because we're manually upgrading it because of caffeine consumption, it's not a good time. It gives you a good feeling at first. You might feel really alive, but it can send you into a bit of a spiral within complex emotional relationship dynamics. And if something hard happens in the moment, you could react like too much and not be stable and calm, especially as a man. That's such a big deal. Women have a lot more leeway when it comes to messing up and being a little bit erratic. But a woman on high cortisol can very much be a lot more masculine than she needs to be, and this can cause butting heads with the man, and that's not good. Women in their sympathetic nervous system, this is supposed to happen only a portion of the time. It's supposed to be something for her to rely on. Women are, in my opinion, are supposed to be more parasympathetic dominant, where men are supposed to be able to access their sympathetic nervous system more so. For those who don't understand the nervous systems, think of the parasympathetic. It's just rest and digest. Sympathetic is fight or flight. I think of these as sympathetic masculine. So we'll write it down. Sympathetic nervous system. Masculine. And then we got the para. It's nervous system. Sorry for my handwriting. And that is feminine. All right. So I'm gonna make sure we get the wheel here. Okay. So this is the whole matrix of it. We've got cortisol goes up, estrogens, androgens, estradiol, testosterone going down. The sympathetic nervous system is your masculine system. Your parasympathetic system is your female system. And men are supposed to be widely in this guy. Women are supposed to mostly get in this guy or girl. Yeah. So caffeine, though, can dysregulate all this for a potential benefit in the world. So when you're doing caffeine, make sure you're doing it intelligently. I do advise people that if they're in a job situation where they lose the job, if they do the caffeine, then just do the caffeine. It's great. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Sometimes caffeine's great, but otherwise, a lot of times it's not. The ideal goal is just to get your whole endocrine system functional through a great diet. Because if you don't have a good diet, it essentially leaves a lot of brain fog. It's just ultimately very important to manage your energy in a way that you don't need artificial stimulants. You want to have a good, reliable foundation through your diet, right? So as it stands, as I'm making this video right now, I'm fasting. I don't have very much brain fog, if any, when I'm fasting, though I can feel a little bit rough and gruff for sure because I
do mine without water. But anyway, this is how it's done. Just make sure that you take care of your sex hormones by managing your cortisol, and your relationships will thrive. Okay. All right. My name is Asa. If you like my content, subscribe and do also share it too. You know, if you feel like anyone can benefit, absolutely share it around. I'd really appreciate that. And also give me a like. Okay.